Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Campus Care Ed Talks. Ed Talks is a platform where educators and leaders come on board and express their viewpoints related to education and society. Our topic for the day is classroom management and its importance. And to express her viewpoints on the same, we have with us Dr. Urmimala Sudhakar, ma'am, Principal of Summerfield School, Gurugram. A very warm welcome, ma'am.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me on board. A warm and beautiful morning to everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out your time. It's a pleasure to have you here on board.
My honor. Thank you.
Ma'am, speaking of classroom management, ma'am, so what sort of management is it? How do we explain classroom management, ma'am?
Classroom management is the entire process of the teaching learning activities that are carried out within the confines of a classroom. Basically, classroom management has two basic stakeholders. It has the teachers and it has the students. But just the teachers and students cannot add up to classroom management. Classroom management has to have other requisites like proper infrastructure, proper studying material, the willingness to study. That also adds to classroom management. And most important factor of classroom management is the teacher, the guru, the knowledge giver. So all these, when they are together, the teacher, the student, the studying material, the willingness to study within a particular place, that is known as classroom management and the positive transaction of teaching learning process is what classroom management is all about, because after all, we know what is a classroom. Classroom is a place where a set of human beings are there to acquire knowledge. So when this is achieved, then that entire process is classroom management.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was very beautifully explained. So, ma'am, speaking of classroom management, what it is, and do you think that it is an important skill that every educator, every teacher should, possess? And why is it an important skill when it comes to the management, ma'am?
For a teacher, if she is not able to transact the desired teaching process that she has planned, then she's failed as a teacher. So, classroom management is very important. It is a quality which every educator needs to have. Being able to manage a classroom well is a very important skill which does not come very easily. It has to be acquired, it has to be fine tuned and improved depending on the set of students in front. You cannot have a same set of rule for every class, because every class and every set of students have their own character, have their own learning abilities. So the ability to transact educational process in a class and to positively carry out classroom management has to vary from the needs of the students, and the teacher is a very important facilitator for positive classroom management. The teacher has to have very positive classroom management skills. Classroom management skills require the teacher first and foremost to be absolutely confident about the transaction of the teaching material, about her content. If you are confident about your content, half the war of classroom management is won. Then, very important is positive communication skills. To be able to have good classroom management, you need to have communication skills. Because unless you can communicate well, the set of children sitting there who are listening up to you will not be able to understand what you're trying to tell them. So, the purpose of your profession, which is to give out education, can only be achieved if your classroom management skills are positive and you're able to teach those children who are there in front of you. That's what I feel is the importance of classroom management. and a very important skill for any educator.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, sometimes there are, situations when the classroom, I would not say a bad classroom, but how do you stop yourself from yelling? Being an educator, how do you, make sure that the classroom management is not too strict for the students and everything goes fine?
Yes. Now, that is a very important aspect where teachers and educators feel that being strict is good classroom management. That's a very wrong conception. Being strict does not make you a good teacher. And if a classroom is too strict, then the teaching learning process becomes boring, becomes one sided. Then it is only the teacher who's teaching without bothering to find out whether those children sitting in front are grasping what you're saying. So, to stop classroom management from becoming too strict, a teacher has to be very, very well planned, and she has to divide her time into exact compartments of what she's going to use her time for. And in every class, there has to be 5, 7 to 10 minutes allotted for interaction from students. Because if you are not allowing your students to interact and you're just allowing your class to be one sided, then it's a strict, boring class. Allowing a democratic transaction of the teaching and learning process, not an autocratic transaction. It has to be democratic. You are teaching, and the person sitting there is learning, is allowed to question, is allowed to clarify doubts, is allowed to express opinion. So, as a teacher, to stop the classroom from being too boring, you have to be a patient listener. You have to know when to allow a child to speak, for how much to allow a child to speak without the class teaching getting disrupted, and when to tell the child, okay, child, I'll get back to you. Let us continue with the class. So, this element of flexibility, the element of listening to someone else's opinion, the element of impromptu expression of opinion is very important. That is what allows a classroom not to be boring and the classroom management not to become too strict.
Thank you so
That's
much, ma'am. Lastly, ma'am, do you think that the students' involvement in the whole process is it also mandatory? The students also are taking part in the classroom management and all the doubts and question sessions, everything. And why is it important for them, ma'am?
yes. Now, a classroom, again, I repeat, is for transaction of teaching, learning process. It is not a place only for teaching. Along with teaching, the learning has to happen. So, till we do not allow student involvement in the entire classroom management process, we are not being able to judge whether the student in front has understood anything at all. These little formative assessments can only be carried out when there is positive student involvement. Student involvement is not important just because we want to assess whether they have understood or not, because we want to give them a chance to express their opinion. We need to give them a chance to clear their doubts. And we, of course, need to allow them to be able to speak for the holistic development. They cannot be mute listeners only. They have to be allowed to speak. They have to be allowed to improve their communication skills. So, student involvement in the whole process makes classroom management a positive quality and a positive aspect of a school. Student involvement enhances positive classroom management, and it is good for the teacher also. I would say a teacher who does not allow student involvement is not a good teacher. She or he has to allow student involvement to be able to understand whether what she's saying, what he's saying is reaching those 30, 40 children sitting in front, whether they are being able to gauge, whether they are being able to gain the knowledge, and whether they will go back home and be able to remember what has been taught in the class. You can only make that out when you are allowing the voice of the children to be heard and children to take part in the process of classroom management.
Absolutely, ma'am. It is very important that the students also take part when it comes to,
Yes.
classroom management. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here today. And
Thank you so much for having me with you. It's always an honor to be a part of these sessions.
thank you, ma'am, for sharing your views and experiences on classroom management, ma'am. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And for all the viewers watching us out, do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more stuff like this. Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day.
Thank you.